Before we get started, special thanks to my channel members, Dutch, Fozz, and Gwen. Follow the link in the description below to join the royalty and get access to shoutouts, sub badges, stream emotes, and more. So jumping straight into Game 1 draft, this is Team Liquid versus T1, or T1 on blue side, Team Liquid on red side. What did you think of this draft, Fozz?
I think red side absolutely destroyed the draft in general. The only part I didn't like was Aphelios.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like Aphelios here. I think the Jace on B5 was really bad.
Yeah, going through the red side draft, like if you see B1, B2, B3 already shown like this, I don't think Aphelios has a spot there, in my opinion. There's too much range to go about and too much zone of control by Orianna. Yep. So a lot of auto attack oriented ADCs like Aphelios really struggle to play against champions like Orianna, and especially if there's no frontline tankiness except Sejuani, you're never gonna hit anyone here, in my opinion. So that's the part I didn't like. But apart from that, I think they won the draft. From what I've seen live, I watched this live. B2 was actually a J4 hover, which would have been much better, in my opinion, given that Poppy is also banned and Lee Sin is already shown. But they opted for Renata Ashe, which tells we're gonna stomp this bot lane, and we are gonna win this game easily. It's a bit of a cocky draft, in my opinion, but objectively looking, if this is like 50-50 in terms of who wins, I would give it to the red side, the winner of this draft, in my opinion, because it's easier also to play and it just looks better.
Yeah, I think so too. So I quite like the 1-2-3 on blue, because once you see the Lee Sin, you know that Jarvan can't come in, which this 1-2-3 would be pretty weak to Jarvan. But then the Aphelios is kind of bad. The Syndra is like probably what we would say is the most standard response into Orianna, I think.
Yes, she can handle Orianna pretty well. She can even actually win out a lot of trades, and she also scales pretty decent too.
Yeah, it's a pretty good lane for her. And then from there, I think it just goes worse and worse for T1. They go Sedge with no melee lane, and then they pick another range lane on 4, and they're playing against Syndra, Lee Sin, Rel, and then Cassante comes in, but I think Cassante could be something even better. Like, I think Irelia would actually be correct here, but I don't think... Oh, maybe Summit can play Irelia. But basically, you've got these 4 really vulnerable range champs with nothing really protecting them, and then you've got a Sedge who doesn't have anyone she can play with for passive stun.
Yeah, I agree. I think what T1... Like, if you look at the draft, right, you have Arrow, you have Sejuani ult, and you have Jace QE, right? So what you're trying to do here is trying to make picks a lot, which usually works really well against weaker teams. Against teams that are not well organized, they're well disciplined, which in this case, you can make a good case for TL not to be a very, very disciplined team. Like, for example, throughout the whole LCS split, Summit would be easily caught out so many times. He would just get killed for no reason before dragon spawns, before any objective. He would die, and then the TL would struggle a lot because of that. And I think that's what T1 was aiming at with the draft here. It's a bit of a cocky draft. It's a bit of a we're gonna stomp you draft. And I mean, they won in the end, so but.
Oh, I have sound on. Yeah, they did win in the end. Let's jump into talking about some things that happened in the game. So I think this here was really unfortunate. They botched the dive while they're strong side top, and then Lee Sin makes the play on bot, and from here they're just losing early game. And I think that was the biggest thing in this game, is that TL got so far ahead early. And then you have all these squishy, vulnerable champs with things that can pick them off. T1 got some nice fights here and there, but...
Yeah, I see what I mean, like with Ashe, Arrow, and Sejuani all day, like pick off target in the middle of random spots. As soon as they see someone being slightly out of position, they pull the trigger. And TL wasn't really aware of that too much this game. That's why, like, if you look at the gold even at this stage, I mean, T1 is ahead.
Yeah, T1 were just laning better in all lanes, so even though they went down 3 kills early, they still had an even gold state. But yeah, like the kick we saw on top side and this engage here, these things don't work if you have any frontline. But there's no, apart from the Sedge, who, like, she can't be everywhere at once, so if Jace is ever in a side lane and he gets collapsed on by Lee, or like here, or he's in the side lane and gets collapsed on by Lee, there's so many, like, one-shottable targets. And that's why the draft doesn't really work.
In my opinion, the ADC couldn't keep up this game at all. Like, you could see a huge gap in the ADC role. In my opinion, like, no, I don't want to talk shit about Tion here, but I feel like he hasn't done that well to impact this game. I think Core JJ tried a lot. He played for Pioshik. This game was literally Pioshik versus T1 for a majority of the time. The rest
Pioshik is back.
Yeah, the rest didn't do that much, and you could tell like how they don't look like a team, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Regardless of the lead that you get, is that they're not really doing that much. I never felt like T1 is gonna lose this game.
Yeah, true. I know what you mean. I agree with you about the Gumayusi versus Yon thing. Like, for pretty much the entire game, he was getting gapped. I think this is the one good fight that Yon had. Like, he actually plays this quite well. He kites out and he flashes the Jace Q. But I think if he goes forward with all his chakrams instead of running, he can maybe trade another 1-for-1.
Yeah, exactly. He had 20 chakrams around him, and
he let them.
I don't know why flash out. Where is he supposed to go?
If he flashes up here and then keeps fighting Jace.
Yeah.
Because flashing to dodge the Jace Q is good, but like you want to keep hitting, you know.
Yeah, you can flash forward. You can flash. I'm pretty sure you get a kill there at least.
And it was looking pretty dicey when TL got this last Baron, but then T1 did the T1 special and they just killed everyone and won.
I mean, this somewhere. Is also Eon. Like, if you slow down here, I think.
Yeah.
He just walked into all of this with the flash on and everything. It wasn't the best engage, I would say.
Well, as this engage happens, the Syndra gets hit by Ash Arrow, so there's no follow-up.
You look at Eon, he just walks into that.
And you compare that to Guma, and Guma is just like gliding. But yeah, game over at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot afford to make simple mistakes like that against a team like T1.
No, they'll just win. Like they even do that against JDG.
Yeah,
they win one fight and they just end.
Also, they know how to play when they're losing fights, so you're not gonna ace them ever. Most cases, you're not gonna ace them. Very rarely you're gonna get an ace against T1, so they're never in trouble. Like TL is here just straight up losing a fight, as like fully getting aced, and just the game is over. You're ahead in gold, but the game is over.
Okay, then we had I've forgotten the bans for this game, but we had Mad versus C9. Let's fill them in quickly. It's Rel, Nort, Maokai, LeBlanc, Ori. While I'm filling this in, you can talk about it.
This is which game is this? This
is C9 Mad.
Okay, I like to see not the C1. I like the Mad draft more here. They had enough damage. They had good engage. They had everything they needed to play this game, in my opinion. They have a better bot lane, like 2v2. They have better mid lane. I don't think you can play for the neutral in the mid lane anymore. So Syndra is, when you have something like Syndra against Cassante in the mid lane, you pretty much have free scaling. It's not like a couple of patches ago where you could afford to do this. And in my opinion, as soon as a good mid laner is facing a worse mid laner, you cannot neutral state it anymore. You are gonna get stomped. You are gonna get diffed, and it's gonna be more abusable. And that's why I don't think this is a good idea to go for. I liked Talia though.
Me too.
And Blubber Talia was pretty good.
It was, yeah.
Blubber Talia was pretty good, but I think that's the only highlight that I see on this side of the draft. Draft-wise, of course, only draft-wise. I think Fudge also played a really good game on Jax. He had really good plays. But apart from that, just draft-wise, I think red side, in my opinion, is like 70-30 should win.
Okay.
On paper, and yeah.
I think Ezreal Syndra make big problems for this draft because there's not enough engage to ever reach them. So if in the game, we'll see later that Ezreal Syndra were never in a position where they had a lead, but if they were, it would be really hard for C9. But the main thing that I picked up on, this is something that I want to start seeing, is that instead of Cassante B2, if they pick Pantheon alongside Talia, then you have like a double multi-role flex that work with each other. So like a lot of the time when Blabber's looking for something, the Cassante is trying to set up, but he's not really the best champ for doing that. Unless your name is Bin. But
I don't think Pantheon is viable in mid lane at all. I don't think you can play Pantheon mid lane in this meta. He would get
you can if you have Talia.
Maybe, but you have hard focus mid, and that's like a flippy thing in my opinion.
Yeah, but you can also put the Pantheon top, or you can put the Talia mid and the Pantheon jungle. So you have like, and you can also put the Pantheon support.
Pantheon jungle is gonna get outscaled hard. Like whatever you're playing against, I think it's pretty slow to play. It's pretty solo queue-esque champion. It's like playing Sylas in jungle. Like you're not supposed to farm. You're supposed to gank. If ganks don't work, you're gonna get outscaled, and you're not gonna be useful ever in the game.
I agree, but I think when you have Pantheon Talia, that like the ganks are going to work. Like it makes people play. So it's almost like a Nocturne, right? It makes them play extremely respectful because you can just get Pantheon Talia altered. The person that's laning against either Pantheon or Talia has to be permanently careful that they don't just get point and click stunned into one shot. You can like push in mid and 4-man dive bot. There's so many things you can do with it, but then also we've seen one thing that we've not talked about yet is that Kalista has been picked or banned every game, and if you do go Kalista, I don't think it's as good as people are giving it credit for, but then Pantheon support becomes a real thing. We also saw Draven where Pantheon support can become a real thing as well, and you can flex them around like this. So I think it's a really flexible line.
Possible. In my eyes, I don't feel like it's a good champion at the moment, like on its own. Yeah. With Talia, maybe there is some spots, but it also makes them very predictable on the way they're gonna approach the game because they have to abuse that early mid. If they don't abuse early mid, they're just falling apart. I mean, Talia can keep up, but Talia is also not like, she's a Scalia Syndra. She's never gonna be a Scalia Syndra or Orianna or Azir for that matter. So she's gonna fall off. Her damage is not as big as those champions. So if you want to utilize that, it needs to be like very early, stompy kind of. I could see like Genji playing that against a worse team on paper. But apart from that, I don't think it's viable in terms of, if it's like a 50-50 between teams, like a really close matchup.
The other thing in this draft is that 99% of the time when we've seen Cassante in the regular season, it's gone top. I think Chovy played a game of mid Cassante in playoffs, and that's about it. But flexing it here to get it away from the Gwen is pretty good, and then you get yourself a Jax into the Gwen. But then you still have the problem where, like, I think you need more snap engage from your B5, something that can help you kill this Syndra and Ezreal, because otherwise you're just gonna, in theory, get blasted.
Yeah. Absolutely have no idea why R4 is Gwen and not Syndra. I don't understand that.
I think they just assumed this was top, so they're like, oh, we'll save counter pick for mid. But then the Cassante flexes and the Jax comes in.
Yeah, but isn't Syndra just really good to pick anyways? Like blind?
Yeah.
What are you gonna play into Syndra? Yeah.
Yeah. So, looking at the game, I mean, it was extremely one-sided. Aside from, I guess, this, like the first gank went the way of Mad. They got a kill onto Fudge. But from this point onward, it was pretty much all C9. And Mad, once again, at Worlds. Every time we see Mad at Worlds, they seem to just disappoint. What happened? They failed to get out of play-ins twice. They got 3-0'd by Dom1, and then now they lost to C9.
They were practicing their TSM impressions of not doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and That's kind of all there is to say about this game. C9 were really proactive, making plays and dives with the Thalia. Mad
they were pushing.
didn't really do anything. And then by the time it got to the point where Kazi and Niski should be blasting people, they don't really have any damage and the game's already exploded.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
also like a lot of mistakes
solo
like this.
to a Jax. Yeah, like
Yeah, like after using E and you're still staying in lane after you know that Jax has like 3 seconds on Q, just jump on you non-stop. Also, Karzi dying early against Berserker in bot lane, like very randomly with the flash up. A lot of like small individual mistakes, and then absolutely doing nothing.
And then where do they take the Infernal? So they take the Infernal, right? And here, right? So you see everyone's full health. The only thing is that Ezreal's missing mana. But then they all recall, so C9 just do Baron.
Yep. Oh, that was a really stupid mistake.
Yeah, like they just forget about tempo. So I think C9 probably, would we say they played better than we expected? I think Mad for sure played terrible.
Yeah, I can't really tell because Mad did nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if they're good or not. I can't tell. Maybe they improved a lot in scrims and preparation for the Worlds.
Yeah.
But seeing other NA teams and their performances, I'm not really...
Well, I think in theory, Cloud9 should be the best NA team, right? Like, I know NRG won, but when you look at the ceiling of the roster...
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll see if C9 can win another game, if they can go, like... I don't expect them to make it out, so if they can go 2-3 instead of 1-3, but yeah, we'll have to see.
I doubt they can snatch a win against anyone except other NA teams or GAM. I think that's the only like reasonable teams that they can snatch win against.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not trying to shit talk here, but I'm just.
No, I think that's just an accurate judgment of the power level of the team. Okay. Speaking of GAM, we got Gen.G versus GAM now. So this is Gen.G on blue, GAM on red. And I didn't like Gen.G's draft at all here.
One thing I really dislike is red side Poppy ban. Red side Poppy is a thing. Blue side Poppy, in my opinion, is not a thing.
Yeah, I agree. That's true. I don't like B1 Alistar. I think Alistar is really weak to really strong lanes, and we can talk about that later with G2 Damwon. But if you early pick Alistar, you can just pick like a really strong lane and just destroy it. It does literally nothing in lane. And then they see Xayah and they pick Vi anyway. And then they go Kai'Sa as well, which is either going to be poke Kai'Sa or it's going to have to run into the Xayah. And then Red continue to draft things that like people running into them. So they go Nico, they go Set, they go Jax. And they keep drafting more like pick and engage. They go Ahri, they go Cassante. But one thing to note about Gen.G's draft here is that if you look down the board, pretty much every single one of these champs is like that player's most played champ. I think Doran played Jax slightly more than Cassante, but Gen.G, considering they're against GAM, who they're like meant to beat, there's meant to be no way that they can lose. They didn't show anything, if you get what I mean. They just picked all their most played and played the game.
Yeah. You can draw the line here between T1 and Gen.G drafts a bit. I think Gen.G's draft is a bit better overall, and has more agency. And but what you can see here is, and this happens a lot against weaker teams on paper again. Not to sound too cocky in terms of how Gen.G is gonna approach a weaker team. But it looks very stumpy. Like it looks like, okay, we want to dive people out of position, we want to catch people out of position, and we want to execute. And that's exactly what they did. Like, if you remember what I said about Ashe and Sejuani ult with the T1 draft, it's essentially the same with the Vi and the Charm.
Yeah.
Like if you're out of position, you're gonna die, and that's what happened.
But then if you think about this draft, like you said, it's against a weaker team, right? But if you have to go in with Ahri and you're trying to play Ahri Vi, you're trying to follow up with Kai'Sa, and then Cassante's looking, but your Cassante's playing against Jax, your Ahri's playing against Nico, so that's 2 losing lanes already. You have Kai'Sa Alistar into Xayah set, so you've got 3 losing lanes. And then Lee Sin feels a bit out of place. I feel like, I don't know if you agree, but if Lee Sin was Poppy, like you said, red side Poppy ban is bad. If Lee Sin was Poppy here, like, it's just over. I mean, they would probably still lose because it's Gam against Gen.G, but draft is
on
over.
paper, if we're talking about equal versus equal here, in terms of skill, I think if Lee Sin is Poppy's absolute banger draft is gonna win 100%. Not that Gen.G would draft more dashes into that, but let's say if. But even this, I think Gen.G draft is better than T1. As like I would, if I have to rate like 60-40 towards red side here.
Okay.
I think it's just way more playable to be blue here. There's a lot of, again, level 6 Vi, level 6 Ahri is very disgusting to play against.
Yeah.
Set up dives easily with the Alistar as well, so they have a game plan and they can execute. And they did that's exactly what they did. I think red side is more like, oh, I'm responding to this rather than making a strategy. So what is the strategy for red side here?
The draft wants to use their 3 winning lanes to set up on objectives first and make this blue side draft run into them and then play kite back. But they're not winning lane because they're worse. So yeah, we can jump into the game. There was something I was thinking about saying, but I've forgotten. Oh yeah, part of what I don't like about Gen.G's draft is how easy it is to respond to at certain points. So like you're showing Alistar and you're showing Vi, and these champs are like you can pick a bot lane that smacks Alistar. You can pick champions that Vi struggles with. So like Set, Jax, Xayah. Who are you really ulting as Vi here? It's got to be like Lee Sin or Nico, realistically. Although sometimes they were ahead enough that he just ulted the Set and blasted him. We'll take a look at some of the replay.
Yeah, many times he ulted Xayah as well to either pop the ult or even kill her through the.
Yeah, sometimes she just didn't ult.
Yeah.
If it was Elk Xayah, it wouldn't work. Yeah. Chovy on Ahri is not real. Like, the way this fight was really sick, he basically 1v4'd this. And at 11 minutes, I was counting, I think it was at 11 or 12 minutes, there had been 7 charms on screen, and all of them hit. So at this point, he still hadn't missed a charm. And then, somewhere later down the line, he finally misses a charm. Like, here again, he's hitting them. He finally misses a charm, and I was like, oh, he finally, again, another one. And then immediately after he misses one, he charms their AD carry and gets them an ace.
As you can see, so many picks are happening on the map.
Yeah, so many mistakes from Gam.
Randomly, yeah. Also, like Doran here is, of course, absolute Chad, but I don't think that should be happening, right?
Not in this matchup, no. But yeah. I think Doran is a lot better than he's been every other year. This is Doran's best year for sure. I think this is where Chovy misses the charm. He just missed it on Jax there, but then he TPs in, charms Xayah, gets the fight started. Xayah doesn't ult the Vial, and then they get an ace. And, I mean, you can just look at the top of the screen. At this point, the game's over, isn't it?
I think, like, the general thought here is, for most of the minor region, or E or Western teams as well, except G2, which we're going to get into soon, you can tell that they're a bit confused. They're a bit like they don't understand what they're doing or like where they're going. And that's why Eastern team pick. I think this is something from scrims that they got. They just pick comps, and they rely on enemy just fucking up.
Yeah. And
that's what happens all the time. Not only that they're gapping people individually with skill, they're also saying you cannot, you don't know how to walk on the map. Like, you don't know where you're supposed to go and how you're supposed to be. Like Xayah getting caught like 3 or 4 times this game. I'm pretty sure. With the ult up, with the flash up, with everything, she's still getting caught. So that means that you're really, really out of position. You're really doing something incorrect. Not saying that it's only on Slater here, right? I'm saying like just in general for the whole team. It's like they feel lost.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And then there's also the fact that like you can get away with picking yourself into losing lanes like Genji did when you're just better.
Yeah.
Okay, what was next? Oh, we had BDS versus JDG. This one was really cool. So BDS on blue. I'm sure you can tell by the Garen. JDG on red. And I think BDS, apart from Vi makes no sense in the context of the rest of the draft, but the rest of it is so hard winning for them.
I agree. Maybe JDG responses were a bit weird in my opinion. Like R5 Orin didn't make any sense to me. When you have a clear, like, why not go Camille here?
Because it's 369. Like, I think Adam just saw, I'm against 369, I'm going to blind Garen. He's not going to pick Camille, he's just going to pick a tank. And that's exactly what happened. They just called their bluff.
Yeah. Even though BDS took... Okay, let's talk about draft first. Sorry, I'm getting away. B1 Xayah. I don't like B1 Xayah. But then R1, R2 is not appropriate response in my opinion. I think if you draft some range, you'll be in a better shape.
Yep.
Vi is just okay. I think Vi is a strong champion on her own and a bit stumpy, but has a lot of answers to her, like very good answers, right? Which JTG didn't show in this game. Rakan is really good. So I have nothing against that. J4 pretty good into Xayah. Nothing bad about that. Garen is okay. Well, it's Adam Garen, so it's good. It's good, and Xayah is also not Xayah. Cassio is also pretty good here.
Yeah,
Ahri
Cassio is good.
I didn't understand Ahri, but then it's Knight. You know, it's like Chovy-like pick that you would go for, and you're gonna do good regardless. But I think Cassio takes this. In terms of which better mid laner you have in this draft. She stops a lot of dashes here, she controls a lot of space, and it's really hard to get onto her. Yeah. I think BDS won this draft. It's like 70-30 in my opinion.
I think so too. And I think if it wasn't for Vi, they could win even harder. I really like that they called the bluff with the Garen. They just said, yep, we're going to pick Garen blind, you're going to pick a tank. And then she did. And this is part of what I was saying about 369. Like, I really don't think this guy's the best top in the world, like everyone's saying. I think it's probably been. But yeah, let's look at the game. I think Adam actually, like, in a lot of ways, outperformed 369 here. This was cool by Sheo after he wrapped around. He sort of avoided vision by going into the jungle and then queuing over the wall. But this is the problem with not running TP, is you can get zoned. And then he dies. But one thing that you've mentioned about Adam a lot is how often he'll just be, like, not in top lane. Like, you can see here, he's only got 55 CS, but the guy, he just... Like, at level 6, it didn't show it, but he just walked into the enemy jungle and just stood in the bush and waited to see if Kanavi would face check him.
Yep. He's trying to impact the map a lot, and I like that.
Yep.
This was also a bit unfortunate and a bit unlucky for BDS.
A little, yeah. And I think in a lot of cases they're just getting hands diffed.
Oh, okay. Here, this is a good example.
Yeah, a good example of what the Western teams do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You cannot allow this. Like, this is almost a game-losing play.
Yeah. Like, the setup is wrong.
Yeah.
And, like, so here, this is another thing that I've noticed that the Western teams do sometimes, is that they've just sent 3 people and committed, like, Vi Flash, Garen Ignite, Garen Ult, Vi Ult, Rakan Flash, Rakan Ignite, Rakan Ult. They use, like, everything, and mid is just left open with JDG dropping Herald. So now mid's completely blown open. Like, the Western teams, apart from G2, like you said, they're very... I don't know how to describe it, but they don't respect the cross map, or, like, the tempo of the enemy team.
Yeah, it also feels like the lack of awareness. Okay, if you pause here, I think Kanavi just absolutely destroyed Sheo this game. Absolutely. I'm not seeing Shio do anything good apart from that
level
first
3
gank on
yeah.
the on 369.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. I've only seen Kanavi on my screen
Yeah.
doing stuff.
And then here he just dashes over this
He just
wall.
gets caught. Yeah.
Like there's no vision. Why are you queuing through this wall? And then he's dead. And that's Baron.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
the play before
It's
this
the
was
second time
Shio's
this
mistake
happened.
as well, like here.
Yeah.
Shio just goes in. Like, I think he chooses to engage here. Yeah, he walks into them and then just dies. And then Crowny has to use both sums to get out. It's a bit unfortunate. Now he's dead, like we said. And from here...
Why is he there?
I don't know. But, like, the early game looked good for BDS, and this is another thing about JDG, is that their early game isn't good. When they're going 5 games against JDG twice... not JDG, LNG. LNG have a really, really solid early game with Scout Tarzan, and that's how they're beating JDG. JDG have, like, a weak early game, but their team fighting is immaculate. So once we got to this point, they'd like got past their shaky early game, and it's like, well, they're just gonna win now. Like I just knew they would win. I can't remember what happened in this fight. Is this the one where I think 369 solo kills Crowny, which should never happen as Ornn against Xayah? So I'm gonna rewatch that and see how this happens.
I don't know. They all go for Kanavi.
Yeah, look, Crowny just
Ahri
died with ult up.
Ahri
with flash
has
up.
free DPS, yeah.
Wait, did Crowny died with ult and flash up? So Ornn TP's in, and then instead of just hitting the Ornn, he walks next to the wall, gets E'd on, and dies.
Yeah. I mean, that was a really bad position anyways, regardless if he ults or not, he's dead, because they just engaged on Kanavi. They used Vi ult on Kanavi.
Vial on Jarvan, yeah.
Yeah, and they just allowed the Ruler and Knight to just run the whole fucking show for no reason.
And the one problem with JDG's draft is that if it goes late enough, they don't really have any damage, like DPS, but Ruler accommodates for that by going Rageblade, which I thought was nice. It is still just him, but also if you're gonna play a just one damage source comp, you want to do it when you've got Ruler. That's probably the best way to go.
Yep.
Okay, you ready for match of the day?
Ah, hell yeah.
G2 versus Damwon. Like, I was so excited for this coming into it. I thought these two teams are really closely matched. It's going to be a banger, and it delivered.
That did it.
Now, I thought Damwon kind of lost draft. I didn't think it was as bad as the other LCK drafts, but I still thought they lost, and there's a trend of LCK teams losing draft. The problem is how weak their lanes are. So they do this early Alistar, and then what I talked about early with punishing the Alistar by just picking a strong lane, they just immediately go Draven. Wow, you're playing Alistar? Okay, Draven.
Yeah. One thing about this draft is the R3 is pretty weak in my opinion. Why not Vi there? I think this is such a good Vi position then. You're playing against Orianna Draven, and you can set up with the Alistar and another setup ADC, right?
Yeah.
You can always have some good targets, and there's not much you can do about that when you have Orianna Draven already, and you have to invest into a support that has to do something about that, like Tahm Kench or something, which makes Draven much weaker in the lane. So if you then go for the Varus Alistar versus Tahm Kench Draven, sounds like very boring and neutral, which you would want against Draven, right? So
yeah.
That's something that gives you a better chance in the draft. R3 Varus, absolutely. I don't understand why. Why not just take out the jungler you want?
I don't mind the Varus because it's decent at weathering the Draven, and you've already got Alistar, so you know you're going to have a rough lane. You have to pick something that can survive. They could, like, I feel like Ezreal kind of gets blasted. He can't really stand toe-to-toe like Varus can. You could also go Misfortune is really good into Draven as like an isolated counter, and that will lead into something I want to talk about later. But the general theme of Damwon, we saw this with like the Jace, the Varus, and then kind of the Azir, they wanted to play for poke, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was really weird that we already talked about Syndra into Ori, and then it's Showmaker. He's maybe the best Syndra in the world. It's either Showmaker or Knight. So I thought it was really weird that they didn't go Syndra in this game because they're wanting to play from afar. And then I think that into these champs like Maokai, Draven, you don't really want to be jumping in with Rel, although Canyon's Rel was really sick. I think what they could do instead is, instead of having more weakness in the side lane like we've seen already with the Jace top, you could pick a tank top, something like Gragas, that helps stop people getting onto your range carries, and then you could play Lilia in the jungle. And then you've got Lilia Misfortune, which is a disgusting combo if you did go MF on 3. And then you've got more range from your Lilia. Your Lilia is destroying the enemy Maokai, like she's just running around vacuuming camps.
Yeah.
And then you've got a top that's not as vulnerable, because we saw
how would GP work as R5?
Abused. GP's not too bad here. Like, he's pretty good into the Renekton, and there's not a lot of things that just run him down.
Because he does work with Lilia and MF pretty well.
Yeah, you could do Lilia MF GP.
I don't think you need a tank on our red side here at all. If you're playing for the poke, kind of rangy, I think GP is really good because people run into you. They kind of have to, since you're playing poke comp. You can actually play him very defensive. You can even like experiment with the builds where you're not playing for pure lethality or pure crit or anything like that. You can have like a mix of damage and you're still gonna be fine. One problem that I have here is a bit of a disrespectful ban pick phase from DK towards G2, because if you look at the champions that they got, like Orianna, one of the best champions you can have in mid lane right now, if not the best mid laner. Even though Caps is not like the most famous Orianna player, I think the champion just compensates well enough. Then Hansama on Draven, you're picking Alistar, and then you didn't ban Draven.
Yeah.
It's Hansama is Draven. Then there's Maokai. Maokai is literally the whole EU is Maokai. People play AP Maokai in EU. That's like the whole shtick of EU, and it's probably, if not the most played Yike champion this split or like this season. I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah. And then the other thing is you're picking your mid before the Maokai comes in, so there's no Silas response either. Which makes the Maokai better. I think maybe they left Draven up because Deft is another Draven player. Maybe they wanted to play it, but you're red side, so it's kind of harder to get it. Especially if you're picking the Alistar early. Yeah, they should just ban Draven, I think. Is there anything you dislike about G2's draft? I don't think so.
I think it's pretty good because you could argue Draven is not the best champion to play, but it's Hansama. It's his champion.
It's Hansama, and you already see Alistar.
Yeah, so it's free for him. So why not?
Yeah,
and that's why I don't have anything against like even Renekton. You're blinding top lane. Who else to blind?
No, exactly. The Renekton blind, I think, is fine.
It's pretty good.
Like, I would prefer Cassante if it was available, but it's not.
Yeah, it's banned. You can go Ornn, but then you're gonna walk into something like Gwen, maybe, or something disgusting you don't want to play against. And Renekton just makes most of the lane pretty neutral, and that's really what you want here.
Yeah, you want a neutral lane so you can play around your Draven.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think Renata is pretty good too, because
I like the Renata a lot. And the Dom 1 draft, they have to be really careful that they don't get flanked or engaged on with these range champs, especially once Jace comes in. I don't think Jace is the best way to go on 5. I think GP, like you said, would probably be better. But like the Renata brings another thing they have to be worried about. Like we saw multiple times, Showmaker had to EQ out to not get hit by a Renata ult.
But in terms of like draft versus draft, I would give it like a 50-50. I think the only reason G2 won is the Ocean Soul.
True.
And we're gonna get into that, right?
We'll go into the gameplay. I think G2 are favored just because of their lane matchups, especially the bot lane.
Mid lane is pretty equalish in the early. Top lane is, I'd say, Jace favorite. Early game.
Jace favorite, but he's never gonna kill him.
Yeah, but bot lane is a stomp, as you can see.
And then this is the problem with the Jace, is that like he's gonna win in isolation, he's gonna get a CS lead, but he can just die to a gank. And it's the same thing we saw with the T1 Jace top. He's vulnerable. But yeah, this game was an absolute banger. Like, that was a sick engage.
Yeah.
And it was just back and forth. And like you said, the Ocean Soul was the perfect soul for G2 to roll. Because they're going to be threatening soul. Like, they're playing Draven Renata into Varus Alistar. They're going to be able to stack Drakes. And then,
here, if you look at this team fight, can you go back a bit?
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I wanted to talk about it. This is what I really, really liked. A bit back, if you may. Like at the start where DK is trying to make a play, right? And you can see like how much. The next fight. Yeah. How aware is Caps here for not using the ult until very like now.
Yeah.
He didn't use
Until
ult when
everyone's there.
the Broken Blade TP'd, and he could have used it on Showmaker alone and would get the kill 100%. But they were so aware that their team is going to be there faster. And it's like a small thing, but you can tell that they're on the same page.
And then the other
Like,
thing,
they understand.
when you compare G2 to the other Western teams, so here they're committing everything to the bot lane, right?
Yeah.
But they're doing it at a time where there is no cross map.
Yep.
There's no Herald to be taken. Like, I mean, Deft's going to get mid T1, but that's it. Whereas the other teams are dropping waves everywhere. They're losing, like, tier 2s when they do stuff like this, but G2's timing is much better.
Yep.
I don't know what the fuck Kellen was doing in this game. Little bit of an oopsie. This is the Baron setup, right? And then, yeah, Canyon. I don't know why they walked into the back of the pit here.
Yeah, that's an oopsie.
But yeah, I think a really big thing to highlight, like you said, is the fact that they rolled Ocean Soul. It's perfect against the poke.
And don't get me wrong, it was really impressive that they got it. Because they had to take 2-3 Drakes, right? Two Drakes.
Yeah.
After they threw the Baron.
Yep. And then they lost the second Baron.
Yeah.
And I think from this point on, the game was so close. I think this is really nice by Deft. He gets flanked and he just stands his ground and kills the Renekton. And this is kind of my bane of being a top laner at the minute. I don't understand how people complain about ADC being weak and say that bruisers are broken, because Renekton literally just flanks Deft and he just stands there and fights him in melee range.
Oh, Caps was playing this so well as well.
And also Kellen. Deft doesn't die if Kellen lands WQ. But if you look, like, Kellen just knocks him away, and you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was because of the flash, no? I don't think it's Kellen's fault here, per se. It's because he W'd here as he was in Zhonya's. But when he flashed, he messed up his combo.
Yeah. But the other two are Kellen's fault. The one we saw already, and then there's another one at some point, where he tries to flash WQ someone and fails. Yeah. But yeah, here you can see the Renata ult just buying a bunch of space. Showmaker was doing DPS, but then had to get out.
Yeah.
And there, again, Ocean Soul saved him, let him Zonya, and then the whole thing happens. So the Ocean Soul put in work this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the poke is very... It's not hard. It's not hard to deal with.
Yeah.
When you have Ocean Soul.
As long as you're hitting something, so if you're on a dragon or a baron, or even if there's a minion wave, you're just healing through it.
And if you notice, compared to other teams that are not Eastern teams, they're not getting caught out.
There's not just one guy randomly somewhere.
Yeah. Even when Broken Blade died against Deft, it was actually a fight.
It was only his GA anyway, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he got sniped at the end.
Yeah, he got sniped. He got killed.
Yeah.
But G2 got the dragon. He bought time, and he actually went for the Deft. He got his flash, and it wasn't just getting caught out. I also think that they played really well, like not rushing to win, because they know that they have tools to play against them.
Yep.
So
I think from this point, with the given the gold lead and the Ocean Soul, it's pretty unwinnable for Damwon. If it was any other soul, then maybe.
Yep. Yeah, because they cannot rely on DPS when it comes to pure fist fight. If the fight is engaged already, they don't have really good chances to win, because you're playing against Draven with infinity DPS against Varus with lethality.
Yeah. But I think the
So
cool
it's
thing
not gonna
about this
compare, yeah.
game is that probably until Elder went the way of G2, like even at this point, we didn't know who was going to win. And this is at 37 minutes.
Yeah.
DK, despite the Ocean Soul and the gold deficit, they didn't play early game very well. G2 played much better in the early game, but in the mid to late, DK played very well. And it kept them in the game.
Also, disrespecting Yike as well was a thing in this game. He did the most damage, I think, in the whole G2 squad in the end, just with
just
saplings.
Yeah.
He did play full AP if I remember correctly. He played like 2 AP items.
Yep, he did. He got a Shadow Flame and a Demonic.
Yeah. So maybe it's not like disrespecting. Maybe it's just oversight on.
It's also the fact that like he's gonna do the most damage because he's the only one hitting most of the time. Like saplings are hitting people and the rest of them aren't.
Yeah, well, they hit hard. They also hit hard.
They hit hard when they do hit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an absolute banger. Then we got, what is this? Less of a banger. This is Weibo versus NRG. Weibo on blue, NRG on red. So Poppy B1 I don't think is good. It's kind of like the Xayah B1. It's kind of weak to the same things. But Weiwei, if Poppy's open, Weiwei will play Poppy. So that's why it's coming in on B1.
But they pick Kalista and Alistar into Poppy.
Yes, they pick Kalista, Alistar into Poppy. Exactly.
So I don't know. Not a fan, I would say.
Yes, I think the red side draft is awful. Not only do they pick Kalista, Alistar into Poppy, by the way, they also pick Ornn into Rumble.
Yeah, well, I don't know what... I was thinking it was going to be Jace. It should have been Jace into Rumble, in my opinion. But it wasn't.
Yeah, you could do Jace into Rumble. I mean, I think anything other than Ornn would be fine.
I mean, in all honesty, the game proved that Rumble into Ornn was pretty irrelevant throughout this whole game, it seems like.
It was.
Even though it was such a focus on that lane, yeah.
Yeah, like the Shire was gaining a CS lead, plates. Yeah. He wasn't really killing him, but he was getting first strike gold as well. He played TP first strike instead of the Ignite Comet that you see.
Yeah.
And he was just farming gold, and then he was like 3 items at 20 minutes, and then they got a Baron because he just ulted in their jungle, and it almost one-shot the Talia. And then, like, literally just the ult almost one-shots Talia. We can get... Is there anything else you want to say about the draft other than that red side just completely fucked it?
I think they just botched it.
Yeah.
I really like the response of Leona with the Kai'Sa. I think that's a really underrated bot lane, but it cannot be picked in the majority of lanes. But when it can, like now,
yeah,
it's really disgusting. Level 2, really disgusting. One-shot potential is insane.
And what I like about Leona in this draft is that sometimes it's hard to find... like, they're playing Rumble Kai'Sa, right? They want something that can go in with them. Sometimes it's hard to find engage tools that can function against Talia, because a lot of engage tools are reliant on a dash. But the Leona ult isn't, and neither is the E. Like, you'll get stunned by the rocks if you hit the E, but you'll still root them. So it brings engage that isn't countered by the Talia E.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's good here. Let's go into the game. I mean, it's just an absolute stomp. For some reason, the bot, like, the highlights is not going to show it, but what led to Weiwei getting this first blood is that the bot got fisted 2v2 so hard that they were under their turret with no summoners and 6 CS as Kalista.
Yeah, as you can see, no heal and no ignite on the left side here.
Yeah.
And no sums on the right, so the fight was brewing.
Yeah.
That's the strength of Leona Kai'Sa. It's just, I think level 2, it's really hard to play against that duo. Just like purely level 2, and a lot of fights or a lot of lane winning situations happen level 2. Like when I say lane winning situation, you either give up a lane at level 2, or or you're trying to, or you're winning pretty much.
Yeah, you're either winning and you're looking to like crash wave and move for something, or crash wave and reset, or you're losing and you're letting the wave come to you.
Yeah, it doesn't have to end in a kill or a dive or anything. It's like you're gonna push,
it can end in
you're winning lane.
Tempo advantage.
Yeah, tempo game. Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're one of the strongest duos in the whole game.
Kai'Sa Leona, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what, like, you know, when Lux Caitlyn was a huge thing.
Yeah.
People would pick Kai'Sa Leona just because of that. Sometimes even Thresh, and they would like level 1 flash to trade for HP, and they would hard win because level 1 is just insane damage.
Yeah.
And level 2 as well if they get a chance.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of things you do with them.
But aside from that, there's not too much to talk about in this game. They just got destroyed. Did it not show the Rumble ult? This is where Rumble ults, somewhere around here. So you can see here, Contracts is full HP, right? On this, they're like posturing around Baron, and Contracts is full HP. And if you just watch his HP bar, when it cuts, he's now nearly dead, and that was just the Shy's ult and nothing else. So they just take Baron for free. That was really funny. But the Shy, you can see how many items he's got. He's like 3.5 items with no kills. He's just been farming First Strike and minions all game.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was any point in this game where there was any doubt that Weibo were going to win. They just completely crushed them from start to finish.
Yeah.
I think this was probably the biggest stomp of the day. Even maybe Genji versus Gam. Like, they were both massive stomps. Where
yeah.
Neither team had a chance. Okay. Stomp aside, we move into Fnatic versus LNG.
I haven't watched the last 2 games or the drafts. I can give you like rundown like this.
You haven't seen the games?
No, I went away.
Ah, okay. So, do you want to still do these, or do you want me to do them on my own?
On draft, yeah, sure. In the game, I don't know what happened, so I'm not gonna comment too much.
Okay. So
I hate B1 Xayah.
Yes, me too.
But never a good response from what I'm seeing. Xayah's good into Renekton. Xayah's okay into Talia.
I think Talia's pretty good into Xayah, but the Renekton, yeah, Xayah's really good into Renekton, so it doesn't make sense to pick Renekton, like to blind your top lane on red side with a champion already shown that thematically counters what you're blinding. And then I also really don't like Jason to Jarvan when you've already got Talia.
Yeah.
Now you've got
Rakan as well, yeah.
Yeah, you've got 2 champs that are destroyed by Jarvan Rakan combo. Like, if they ever don't have flash, they are just dead. Ezreal comes in, and then we go Azir Jax. So Jax into Renekton is like a matchup where you're just looking to outscale and then be more useful later.
Honestly, I really like Blue more, not gonna lie, on paper.
Yes.
And I think the only champion that will replace would be Jax or Ornn.
I mean, I wouldn't have Xayah in this draft.
I wouldn't be one Xayah, but she's there still, okay?
Yeah.
But overall, I would just replace Jax with like something like Ornn. I don't think Jax has a place here. He's playing into Ezreal. You're laning into Jax. If you're losing lane into Jace, sorry. If you're losing lane already, I think something to invest in would be Ornn would be much better. You get in level 14.
When you see
free items.
You see Renekton, Talia, Jace, Ezreal, and you have Jarvan, like just the Renekton, Jace, Ezreal, right? And then you have Jarvan, Rakan. You can just go Malphite.
Oh yeah, you can go Malphite too. Oh wait, I said laning into Jace. I was thinking about Renekton. I still think Ornn would be also good. Still, like, really good.
Yeah, Ornn is fine.
You don't need to do anything crazy here. You already have a lot of damage.
Yeah. You
have really good scaling. Unless you're getting Giga Stomped in the early game, you're outscaling hard. And I don't know who's gonna kill Ornn later on. Like, legit don't know.
Yeah, they're like full AD except Talia. You can even do the thing where you play a tank and you build like heavy into armor here, and then you anathemas the Talia. You just go chains and put it on her. Or you can probably just ignore Talia anyway. She's not going to hit that hard.
But even with Jace, even with Jax, I mean, they're still winning the draft in my opinion. And yeah,
I think it's really hard for especially Jace to play with Rakan, Azir, Jarvan existing. If he ever gets scooped or Jarvan altered, Like, if Azir ever tries to scoop and Jarvan and Rakan are near, then he has to flash, and if he ever doesn't have flash, he's just dead to this.
Yeah, there should be a really hard focus on mid lane here.
Yeah.
Because you just wall, and then you come back and you wall again.
Mm-hmm.
After a flash. And nothing you can do about that, in my opinion. That's why Azir's being picked in on Orianna, is because you can do that at level 6, and then after that once more for a kill, for sure.
Into the game, do you want to go through it even though you've not seen it?
You go ahead.
Okay. So basically, this entire game is just a showcase of why Scout Tarzan are the best mid jungle in the world and why Scout got LPL MVP. Yeah, I mean, Scout just popped off. Tarzan comes and answers this dive. Zika plays it really well, and they end up getting 2 for 0 as a response to Fnatic's dive, which is a tragedy for Fnatic. Just look at Tarzan's movement, man. He's so good. Scout comes in, gets the kill, and then the rest of the game, it never felt like Fnatic could win. It's kind of like the last game. Here, again, Scout killing Humanoid, and now Humanoid doesn't have flash, and like we talked about, if Jarvan's ever around, he just gets ulted and he's dead. And Tarzan's just everywhere. And this is basically the story of the game. They just kept accelerating. You see Scout's score. It's now 6-0 at 16 minutes.
Oh dear lord, what happened?
Trust me, it gets worse. Like, you zoom forward, he's now 7-0-1. You keep going. Like, they just kept doing it. He's now 7-0-2. And every fight, like, sometimes Fnatic would get some kills back, but all the fights were on LNG's terms. Like, LNG were choosing what was fought. And they were coming out on top or even every time. And Scout just played immaculately. Like, now he's 9-0-4, 9-0-7 by the end of the game. He's 11-0-7. Yeah, there was just no point in the game where it ever looked like Fnatic could win because Scout and Tarzan were completely unleashed the whole game. Yeah, I think LNG are one of the favourites to win the tournament, and the way they win is through mid-jungle, and it showed in this game.
Alright, I'm convinced.
Okay,
that's a pretty big stomp.
Yeah, it is. We got one game left. So this is blue side BLG versus red side KT. This is not the draft order. One sec. It was this. Talia. Yeah, it was like this.
Okay.
I think. Yeah. Okay, so again, B1 Zaya, I don't like. And I think there's weakness in blue side's 1-2-3, but not to Kai'Sa. I don't think Kai'Sa is the right pick here.
I agree. Also, you could have picked Jarvan here and just slammed Talia mid already.
Yeah, I think you can do that. That's definitely not bad. Into Jace Zaya. Yep. And then the Zac pick is really cool and unique, and it was fun to watch, but I don't think it's good, because then you just keep like, you already have Zaya Maokai, you just keep drafting champions that are fine with you all inning, and then they go Zac Aatrox, and now their only way to play is Rakan wants to dive in, Kai'Sa wants to dive in, Zac wants to dive in, Aatrox wants to dive in, and then Talia normally wants to kind of kite back and control space, but she's forced to ult in this draft because everyone else is going in. So you've got 5 champs going in against Zaya, Maokai, Rel, K'Sante.
Wait, doesn't Jace stop? Jace E stop Zac E as well?
It can if he gets it, but Cuz was finding some good angles. The Zac, I mean, thematically it's not good, but he played it well.
It's also hard to land on Zaya.
Yeah.
Maokai is not a target.
So yeah, again, the LCK team lost draft, in my opinion. I think it's the other thing that can stop Zac is like K'Sante W or Maokai Q. There's a lot of things, and then obviously Zaya's got her ult, so it's hard to play Zac. And then it's really weird that you use R5 on Aatrox, who is kind of a weak champion at the minute. He got nerfed on 13-15 and 13-17, I think. And he's just been kind of bad since. and he doesn't like. It's not like a hard counter to the Cassante. Like they blind their top, and you're not hard countering it. Like there's much better things you can pick. Like the traditional one is Gwen into this, which I think Gwen's okay here, but there's also like
That's a lot of AP damage then.
yeah, there's also Garen completely crushes him. You could, I don't think you would want to go Darius here.
Garen would be insane here.
Yeah, Garen is good.
Yeah,
what
Garen's
else?
absolutely insane.
What else could you go? Maybe Olaf. But all of these things I think are better than Aatrox for sure. You could go Camille. Since, like, at this point you have to go in, right? There's no way you're pivoting out of that. But I just think the Aatrox is kind of bad. However, if we jump into the game, so you haven't seen this one either?
Nope.
Okay, so this game was cool. So the entire early game was KT being really proactive and getting shit done. So here they're looking for a 4-man on bot. They got like the summoners out, and then here they got Herald, and then aiming solo killed Elk. KT being proactive is the story of this game. They're looking for the fight here, but BLG win it. The other story of this game is that BLG are just really good at fighting you. And also I think Bin has quite clearly shown, at least for day one, he is by far the best top at the tournament. Like maybe like Zeus played really good, but he was playing against TL, so it's not quite the same level of competition. But Bin clapped Keen this game. He was so good. But yeah, you can see KT still looking to be proactive, diving in, fights going their way. And I think from this point onwards, it started to shift into being more BLG favoured. Like KT won the early game. But from this point, once you get to like 15, 20 minutes here, is where you're going to start to see thematic advantages come into play more, which is what BLG have. Also, look at the reaction time on this ult from Elk. You ready? It was crazy. And then he flashes that, and the fight just turns off of the start. But you can see they're trying to dive into champions that want you to dive into them. Like Xayah wants this, Cassante wants this, Maokai wants this. And you're losing off of it. And then every fight, it just looks really hard for KT to play because they have to go in, and BLG are just waiting for them to go in.
Is this really a Aatrox proper build? No.
Oh, also, yeah, there's no reason that Aatrox shouldn't go Cleaver this game. He's playing against 3 tanks. He's against Cassante, Maokai, Rel, and he went...
Does Shojin really work well with him?
Not really, no.
Because he has CC abilities, yeah?
I don't think it works on your W as well as your Q. But
Yeah,
it doesn't work on the Q.
abilities.
The main one is it doesn't work. You don't get the full effectiveness on your Q. So on your Q, it gives less haste than Cleaver at 1 item. I think.
That's strange a bit then to pick.
Yeah, I think the build is wrong. But also Bin, the amount of like engage has been found like this, just bam, snap engage on Cassante, which is normally not a champion you see that on. But Bin was clearly the MVP of this game. You had
looks
that,
like...
and then let's see. I'm trying to remember what happens. This is for Soul, which they don't get. It was another close game where, like, even at this point, it felt like anyone could win. You know, like the gold is dead even. KT have a poorer draft, and BLG are on soul point, so you're expecting BLG to win, but it's winnable for KT. But then Bin again finds another flash engage as Cassante, and I think, does this get them Baron? I can't remember. I think they get Baron off this. And then using the Baron, they get the Drake Soul. Yeah, so they've got the Baron, and now it's soul point, so KT have to run into them, but again, that's what BLG's draft wants. And then Bin just 1v9s this fight. I think he did like 7k damage in this fight, more than anyone else. He's just clapping everyone.
Also, Cassante is pretty balanced.
Yes, Cassante is very balanced for sure. Oh, apparently that's it. But yeah, oh wait, no, why is it? We're only at 7 minutes. Why is it showing me the end screen? Yeah, and then they get Sol, and now they're fighting Baron. And I think at some point Bin again gets like a really sick engage. Is it here? I guess. He kind of just walked at them and killed them. But they have Hextech Sol at this point, and they just kind of won. But yeah, KT had a really nice proactive early game, which is good to see. I think if they had a better draft, they would stand a better chance. But Bin and Elk particularly looked really good in this game. So that sums up all the games. The last thing we've got to talk about is the draw. What do you think of this draw?
It's so bad. It's so boring, holy.
So, first off, we have Weibo versus G2. So that's the second, I'd say this is the second easiest opponent for G2 after C9.
I mean, judging by how stompy they were against NRG,
yeah.
I don't think they're that easy.
But I mean, they can stomp anyone. Like, they stomp JDG sometimes. They can also lose to anyone. That's just how the team works. But I would say, like, I'd say this is probably the easiest way it could go. Like, the
G2?
They get a 4th seed in the first round because they're the first seed, so the only one that would be easier would be GAM, since they can't get BDS because it's the same region. And then now they get another 4th seed in the 1-0 bracket, so G2 might go 2-0 and be in this bracket. Then we've got the BLG JDG, which is just... How many times have we seen this? Like,
infinity.
Was there 2 in spring season, 2 in spring playoffs, 2 at MSI, 2 in summer season, 1 in summer playoffs, so 9? 9 times, and JDG have won every time. And so maybe BLG will say, you know, no one beats us 10 times in a row. I think BLG, to be fair, BLG did look better than JDG.
Yeah, they have. But doesn't really say much, to be honest.
No.
It depends on the... Yeah.
But I think compared to MSI, this meta is much better for BLG. Like, topside matters more. There's more things you can pick. You don't have to just pick a tank every game. And also, Bin wasn't a Cassante player in spring, and then he spent all of summer learning Cassante, and now he looks like he's maybe the best Cassante in the world, based on that last game. So, maybe this is the one. We'll have to see. LNG C9. Yeah, well, C9 dropped to the 1-1, I guess. And then Gen G T1. So this is kind of like the BLG JDG thing. Like, Gen G just win when these teams play each other. It's just what happens. So
yeah, I can see that happening. The only good competitive match here is, in my opinion, VBGG2. It's the only interesting one, at least. Maybe not. Maybe BLG, phrasing competitive is not. Yeah.
Maybe BLG JDG is competitive.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's not interesting, like you said.
Yeah. I don't want to see the rest. Okay, LNG C9. It's a stompy matchup. I guess it's interesting to some degree. But I feel there's not much chance C9 has here.
Yeah.
I would be like glad to be proven wrong here, but I think LG takes this easily. And Weibo G2, I think that's gonna be a banger. I think that's something you have to watch here. But apart from that, like even in the lower brackets, I don't want to watch any of this. I've already either seen it or it just looks boring.
Yeah. In the losers bracket, or the 0-1 bracket, we've got EL versus NRG. So we have NA versus NA, which, you know, I don't think anyone wants that. Then we have...
Not even NA, yeah.
Yeah, I mean... Then we have Damwon versus KT, which is kind of cool because we haven't seen these teams play each other in LCK playoffs. They didn't... I don't think they played each other. So we'll see who's better. That's interesting. Then we get BDS Mad, which is... So we've now got 3 Civil Wars in the losers bracket. And then Fnatic Gam, which it's also like not really... Maybe people are interested to see Fnatic against Gam. But this losers bracket looks very boring to me.
It does. And the worst part about this loser bracket is that DK or KT, which are clearly the best teams here,
yes,
are going to be in a position where they're 0-2, one of them.
Yeah, like
and
2
they
of
have
these teams are not like the other 6.
They have to win 3 best of 3s to get through, which is very unlikely, actually, when you think about it. Very unlikely, because
maybe
top bracket is going to drop. Like a lot of these teams are going to drop.
So I don't know. I think like in here in the 0-2, they're going to win for sure. Like one of these teams is going to lose. So let's say it's like Team Liquid, and then to stay in the tournament, they're going to have to play a best of 3 against either DK or KT, which is terrifying. And then moving into here, it's probably going to be like the people that win in this. So like maybe NRG, BDS, and Fnatic, right? They're probably going to go into here, and then they'll be playing either Weibo or G2, and then like BLG, and then T1. So they're going to lose again. So then it'll just be like back to KT or DK versus these teams again, and they'll win. And then in the 2-2, we'll see. It's going to
what can happen, though? You know what can happen?
Yeah.
Well, let's say Gen G T1, right? Let's say T1 loses, or let's say BLG loses as well. DK can, or KT, whoever wins can get either of those 2.
Yeah, that's true.
And whoever loses can face either KT or DK again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's...
yeah, that's true. There is the awful draw where it goes DKKT, and then the winner goes here and plays like BLG and loses, and then it's DKKT again.
Yep.
That would be like the tragedy draw, but hopefully that doesn't happen.
It's possible.
I think the ideal draw would be that like DK or KT play C9 when they lose. So then we actually get like a more reasonable organization of power. But we'll see. But yeah, this DK versus KT match throws the whole tournament into like one of them could just drop out when they don't really deserve to. But that's kind of the problem with this system. No, not necessarily problem, but the reason that it doesn't lead to the 8 best teams getting out. Not that that necessarily matters, because, you know, whether it's the 8th best team or the 10th best team, they're probably going to lose in quarterfinals anyway. But this system doesn't really lead to the 8 best teams getting out. And the main reason is because of Civil Wars.
Yeah.
Like, if in this initial draw, there was the rule where regions couldn't play each other. If that was still going, then we wouldn't have this, and then these games would be more interesting, these games would be more interesting. I just think it would be a better thing if that was a rule, but oh well.
Yeah, I agree.
Hopefully the fact that they're playing each other now, I mean, the fact that there's 2 Civil Wars here almost guarantees that there won't be a Civil War, or there will only be 1 Civil War in the 2-0 thing, I think. Yeah, there can only be 1 Civil War in here now. So there's going to be no Civil War best of 3 here. And hope there definitely won't be a Civil War in 0-2 either, I don't think. Oh, there might be an NA versus NA, actually. No, there can't be, because it's NA versus NA here. Yeah, so it makes less Civil War best of 3s. So I guess that's like, you know...
That's a fair trade-off, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing. Okay, well, thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed being on this show thing. I don't know.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.